I want to see them here.
Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. Welcome our first Shabbat service of 2021. There is a sense as we offer Matovu, and I know all of you transform your kitchens, living rooms, bedrooms, wherever you are, into a space where we all worship together, that this has seen us through this ability to be in congregation, in community, albeit in different spaces. So how goodly are your tents, O Jacob. A reminder from us here that the synagogue's internet is going in and out. So if we struggle at all with connection, just bear with us and know that that's what's happening. We're on service number 1, which is unusual for us, as we normally have Shabbat B'Yachad on the first Shabbat of the month. So we meet on page 105. As we say the prayers of our ancestors, help us, God, to remember their faith and devotion, their joy and suffering, and make us worthy of our heritage. May the tradition we've received live in us, pass from us to generations we shall never know, enriched by the truth that we've found and the good we have done. So may we fulfill our task on earth and receive our blessing. Yehi ratzon melfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu. Eternal God, school us in your teachings. Make us loyal to your commandments. May we never consent to evil or surrender to temptation or self-contempt. Help us to rise above selfishness. Make us responsive to the voice of conscience. Direct our every impulse to your service. Today and every day, may we merit kindness and compassion in your sight and in the sight of all who behold us. And let us know your love. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim. And now, as a treat from Franklin and Dean, instead of Shachar Avakeshacha, we will hear Elohai Natsur. If you'd like to follow the words, which you can follow on page 146, this song has been built around the words of the silent prayer that's been offered for us since the 8th, 9th century. So a way of living our lives.
Elohai netzol leshoni ושפתיים מדבר מרמה. ולים קל עלי נפשי תדום, ונפשי כעפר הכל תהיה אלוהי, אלוהי, אלוהי נצור
Why
לשוני
your face doesn't appear?
ושפתיים מדבר ממר. ולים קל עלי נפשי תדום, ונפשי כעפר הכל תהיה אלוהי, אלוהי. פתח ליבי, פתח ליבי, בתורתך, אלוהי נצור לשוני מרע, ושפתיים מדבר ממר. ולים קל עלי נפשי תדום, ונפשי כעפר הכל תהיה אלוהי, אלוהי, אלוהי.
Baruch Shema v'haya ha'olam baruch hu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Hamchulal b'fi amo meshubach umfa'ah b'lishon chasidav v'avadav. Bishvachot u'vizmarot. Megadelcha v'namlichecha. Malkeinu yachid chei ha'olami. Baruch atah Adonai melech mechulal b'tishbachot.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוניה הללוך, סלה. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני
And as we finish Psalm 145, unceasingly our lips shall sing God's praise. So may all creatures laud God's holy name forever.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, שיר ושבחה, הלל וזמרה, ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בשירי זמרה.
Page 135.
ברוך הוא את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzei or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. המאיר לארץ ולדרים עליה ברחמים, ובטובו מחדש בכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית. מה רבו מעשיך אדוני, כולם בחוכמה עשית, מלא הארץ קנייניך. תתברך אדוני אלוהינו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל מורי אור שעשית, יפרוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצא המורות. And together from home, great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching, make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher bi'amo Yisrael, bi'ahava. And now for the Shema, stand, sit, whatever is most meaningful for you at home. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך, בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
So as we acknowledge that all that we offer in the Shema, teaching our children, other people's children, making our Judaism and commitment a way of life, when we travel, when we're at home, when we are with friends, when we are out in the workplace. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words now and forever. True it is, Eternal One, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt, freed us from the house of bondage, and then with great joy Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you this song.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף פלא.
שירה חדשה שיבחו גואלים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו.
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה Shabbat Yisrael. Go'aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo. Go'aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo. Kadosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael.
And now we'll go to the tefillah, and I believe some of my children at the kitchen table will be leading us in the Amidah. We are on page 140 as we come in with Adonai Sefatai Tiftach.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Emotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, ve'Koneh Hakol, ve'Zocheh Hasdei Avot ve'Imaot, u'mevii Geula livnei bneihem, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע מגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם, אדוני, מחיי מתים, אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל.
מקלקל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים. צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו ישנה עפר. מי כמוך על גברות, ומי דומה לך?
ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם. כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך.
קדוש, 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 אדוני מלול הארץ כבודו.
כבודו מלא עולם. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך.
אדוני Shabbat lecha. Itzak Nitzak Mulzak Yivato.
Hello everyone, just give us a few moments to get the stream back together.
The last line, say Shalom,
Okay.
and then you can. Okay, we're up, Dora. Carry on.
Yismachu b'malachutacha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Mekadashei shvi Shabbat. Kulam yisma'u v'yitamru mituvecha Shabbat. Yisma'u b'malachutacha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Yisma'u b'malachutacha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Ratzita bo v'kidas lo Shabbat, Kendat yamin, oto karata Shabbat.
Shabbat.
B'malachutacha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh v'reishit Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh v'reishit Shabbat.
Shabbat.
B'malachutacha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutacha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu le'olam va'ed. Tzur hayenu, magen yeshenu, ata hu lador vador. Nodeh lecha u'netzapeh tehilatecha. Al hayenu hamsurim be'yadecha, ve'al nishmotenu hapekudot lach. Ve'al nisecha shebechol yom imanu. Ve'al niflotecha b'tovotecha shebechol eit erev v'voker v'sohorayim. Baruch ata Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'eh lehodot.
Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova v'racha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol ha'amim. Sim shalom, sim shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom. Please take a moment for the silent prayer.
Yihiu leratzon, hirei fi. V'eyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri v'go'ali. Adonai tzuri v'go'ali. L'ratzon hirei fi. V'eyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri v'go'ali. Adonai tzuri Ose shalom bimromah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Ose shalom bimromah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
I think that raised our adrenaline a little bit this morning, this Shabbat. We turn now to our Torah service, page 481. As we've been doing these last few weeks, the actual choreography of the Torah service, as we know at the moment, is greatly reduced. The Torah is with me already here, and so we will not have the walking around, passing it, and we will not do a Hagbah. We are really being as scrupulous as we can now on the Bima. So we're on page 481 as we go into the heart of our service.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, Adonai imloch leolam vaed, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
So here we are in the very last Torah portion of the book of Bereshit. We couldn't have planned it better. As I often say, Torah seems to smile on us because we will, of course, finish the last words for us of the book of Bereshit and offer those words, chazak, chazak, strength, strength, let us be strengthened. And boy, do we need that, and does it have an amplified meaning for us this morning as we finish the portion of Vayechi. As I prepared this week, and I've had a few days in the Chol HaMoed, that I noticed that Alexandra Simonon has coined. I rather like that. Chol HaMoed, between Christmas and New Year, of remembering that actually, although I didn't have a full Bat Mitzvah, growing up in an Orthodox traditional synagogue in the Oxford Jewish community, Vayechi was my Bat Mitzvah, where I offered a devar on the last portion of Genesis and the death of Jacob and Joseph. So I was really pleased to see that this morning as we move into 2021. So we are in the very last portion. We are in chapter 49, verse 28, through to chapter 50, verse 8. And I'm delighted today that we are calling up our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Frank Hellner, in honor of his 86th birthday. So he will offer blessings around the Torah portion and after we have offered Chazak, Chazak. Just a few words about why I particularly wanted to read this portion, which is slightly a few verses after the one that we are encouraged to read in the liberal community. For me, this final moment of Jacob offering blessings to all his sons, of course, we don't hear anything about Dinah here, but we hear him offering blessings to his sons. Rashi comments that the piece that I'm going to begin says, and these were all the tribes of Israel, and he blessed them. And Rashi says, why would that have been necessary after we've just had verses and verses of him telling Reuben what Reuben's going to be like and Benjamin what Benjamin's going to be like? And Rashi says is that for many of us, we might miss the fact that he was blessing them, because Jacob really has quite a lot of chiding and chastising in the words that he says to his children and are reminding them of the things they've done wrong in their lives. So Rashi says, nonetheless, it is still blessings that were being given. And this last moment of Jacob's life of blessing his children, and then what does he want to do? He dies in Egypt with his beloved son and all his other sons. They're all living there in the area of Goshen, which takes on much more poignancy for us as we move into the book of Exodus. They're all living there, but what does Jacob want as he dies? He wants to know that he will be buried back You mean I could do it on my phone? But that...
I still have a better sound. I'm just trying to.
It's a no. This one. Frozen me.
Just refresh it.
Are we in? No? It's funny, this has been our only thing, right? Can continue with, oh, they hear us. Shall we? Yeah. Well, the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like we might try and do it audio only. I know you can imagine what Rabbi Rebecca looks like, so I think we might try just audio.
Can you hear us? So no, they can't hear.
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
You
we
can
can hear you.
hear us.
We can hear you.
Fine. So until we come back in, we are going to carry on with Torah. So I'm going to call up our emeritus rabbi, Ya'amod from your home, Frank, Harav Shraga Shalom ben Levi ben Sion v'Manya levarech et haTorah.
You're unmuted, yes.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai hamavorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamavorach leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
So I believe the Torah is on the screen. Ele Shiftei Yisrael, Shneim Asa v'zot asher diber lahem avihem, v'yavarech otam ish asher kivrachto, barech otam, v'yatsav otam v'yomer aleihem ani ne'esof אל עמי, קברו אותי אל אבותיי, אל המערה אשר בשדה עפרון החיתי, במערה אשר בשדה המכפלה, אשר על פני ממרא, בארץ כנען, אשר קנה אברהם את השדה מאת עפרון החיתי, לאחוזת קבר. שמה קברו את אברהם ואת שרה אשתו, שמה קברו את יצחק ואת רבקה אשתו. ושמה קברתי את לאה מקנה השדה. I'm pausing because I'm wondering if you can hear me. Yeah? Okay. והמערה אשר בו מאת בני חטא, ויכול יעקב לצוות את בניו, ויאסף רגליו אל המיטה, ויגבע, ויאסף אל עמיו, ויפול יוסף על פני אביו, ויבך אליו, וישק לו. ויצב יוסף את עבדיו, את הרופאים, לחנות את אביו, ויחנתו הרופאים את ישראל, וימלאו לו 40 יום, כי כן ימלאו ימי החנותים. ויבכו אותו מצרים 70 יום, ויבערו ימי בכיתו. וידבר יוסף אל בית פרעה לאמור, אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניכם, דברו נא באוזני פרעה לאמור, אני השבני לאמור, הנה אנוכי מת בקרבי, אשר קראתי לו בארץ כנען. שמה תקברני, ואתה אעלה נא ואקברה את אבי ואשובה. ויאמר פרעה עלה וקבר את אביך כאשר השבך, ויעל יוסף לקבור את אביו, ויעלו את כל עבדי פרעה, זקני ביתו, וכל זקני ארץ מצרים, וכל בית יוסף ואחיו ובית אביו, רק טפם וצונם ובקרם עזבו בארץ גושן. So I'm going to translate because these are such beautiful words. These are the tribes of Israel, all 12 of them. And these are the words that their fathers spoke to them and blessed them, each one according to their own particular blessing. And then their father spoke to them, saying, I will be gathered to my people. I pray to you, bury me with my ancestors, with my fathers. Bury me in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is just below the fields of Mamre in the country of Canaan. That Abraham bought the whole field, bought it from Ephron the Hittite in order to have it as a burial property. There Abraham was buried, and also Sarah his wife. There was buried Isaac and also Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. In the field of this cave that was bought from the Hittites. And when Jacob had finished speaking, had finished commanding his sons, so he gathered up his feet, a euphemism for literally lying on the bed ready to die. He gathered up his feet under him onto the bed, and he gave out or expired. Rashi says that actually the word for dying is not used here, which is why many of the commentators suggest that Jacob never actually died. But Vayigba literally means expired. And he expired, and he was gathered to his people. And it's this response that is so beautiful and poignant. Joseph fell on his father's face, and he wept Joseph, we know, is no stranger to tears. He wept and he kissed him. And Joseph immediately ordered his servants and all the doctors to embalm his father. And embalming, we know, is using spices and incense to keep the body fresh. And the doctors embalmed Israel, and the days of embalming were 40 days. And when the days of embalming were finished, the people of Egypt, not just his family, the people of Egypt wept for 70 days. Rashi suggests that was the 40 days of embalming and the 30 days of mourning that they were used to and that they've indeed passed down to us. And those 70 days are because the idea is that when Jacob came to live in Egypt, the famine stopped and the Nile swelled. And so he brought blessing to the land of Egypt. And so when the days of mourning were over, Joseph said to the house of Egypt, the house of Pharaoh, and said, if I have found favor in your eyes, speak into the ear of Pharaoh, saying, I swore to my father. And my father said that and then repeats these words, when I die, bury me in the grave that I have prepared for myself in the land of Canaan. Bury me there. So let me, I plead with you, let me go up and bury him, and I will return. And Pharaoh, maybe Joseph was surprised by this, Pharaoh responds by saying, go up, bury your father, just as you swore to him. And Joseph goes up to bury his father. And who goes up with him? But all Pharaoh's servants, all the elders of the house of Pharaoh, and all the elders of the land of Egypt. This is an extraordinary gathering that go up to Canaan. And all Joseph's house, and all the house of his brothers, and all that remains in Goshen are the children, the flocks, and the herds of cattle. So I'm going to offer with you all from home the words as we mark the end of the book of Bereshit, here as we've just walked over the boundary into a new year that holds so much hope for all of us. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Strength, strength, let us be strengthened.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Are we up? So we go now to our Haftarah, unusually from the writings from the book of Job. Such a treat for us. We rarely hear the book of Job. And so we're going to hear the book of Job really reflecting on Jacob's blessings for his children, both the sense of chastisement, of difficulties in their life, as well as blessing, both the sense of promise, of the sense of being protected from destruction, from famine, of having a covenant. It's a deeply reassuring message that comes from Job, you will come to the grave in full vigor, like sheaves gathered in the season. We have examined this and it is true, so hear it and apply it to yourself.
Thank you, Rebecca, and Mazel Tov. We praise you, Eternal One, our God, Sovereign of the universe. You inspired faithful prophets and took pleasure in the words they spoke in truth. We praise you, O God, for the gift of Torah, your servant Moses, your people Israel, and the prophets of truth and righteousness. Blessed is the one whom God corrects. So do not despise the discipline of the Eternal. For the Eternal wounds, but also binds up, and injures, but God's hand also heals. From 6 calamities God will rescue you. In 7 no harm will touch you. In famine God will deliver you from death, and in battle from the stroke of the sword. You will be protected from the lash of the tongue, and need not fear when destruction comes. You will laugh at destruction and famine, and need not fear the wild animals. For you will have a covenant with the stones of the field, and the wild animals will be at peace with you. You will know that your tent is secure. You will take stock of your property and find nothing missing. You will know that your children will be many, and your descendants like the grass of the earth. And you will come to the grave in full vigor, like sheaves gathered in season. We have examined this, and it is true. So hear it and apply it to yourself. For the Torah, for the privilege of worship, for the prophets, for this Sabbath day which you, Eternal One, have given us, for holiness and rest, for honor and beauty, we thank and praise you, Eternal One, our God. May all the living praise your name now and forever. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath.
Amen.
Shakoach. Thank you. Amen, Paul. We now go to the community prayers, which I believe are being read by Benji Michaels on the occasion of his 18th birthday. We're on page 484.
Eternal God, we ask your blessing on our Queen Elizabeth and all the royal family, as well as those who govern our country. Guide them and all who govern our country with a spirit of wisdom and compassion, so that they care for the citizen and the stranger and bring benefit to all the inhabitants of our country and the world. Bless all our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel. Bless our congregation and all its members. Be with those who seek your presence and all who are in need of healing, spiritual or physical. Let them know that you are near to comfort and sustain them. May peace exist in the state of Israel soon and in our time. May you, eternal God, grant blessing to her, established as an age-old dream and hope of the oppressed. May its leaders and citizens be inspired to the aims of its founders, and may the country be imbued with the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice always. May the Shabbat renew our energy to build and sustain a better world, and to deepen our gratitude of so much that surrounds us. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you. A huge mazal tov to Benji. Dean and I are finding it difficult to believe that you're 18, but that's the last we'll say about it. We're on page 486. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai ki nizgav shomo levado.
הודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. הללויה, הללויה.
So we're on page 488. God's teaching is perfect.
Reviving the soul.
God's word is unfailing.
making wise the simple,
God's precepts are right.
delighting the mind,
God's commandments are clear.
enlightening the eyes,
God's doctrine is pure.
enduring forever,
God's guidance is true.
and altogether just.
Ki lecha tov natati lechem, Torati al ta'azovu.
Etz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomecheha meusha d'racheha darchenoam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Ashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh yameinu kekedem Chadesh yameinu kekedem.
So it seems we are back online, but I am not sure right now. Zoe told me not to prepare a usual sermon, so I haven't, despite the fact I'm sure there is a zillion things that we'd like to hear about this morning. So maybe I just need to be told by you, Zoe, what now?
Sure. Rabbi Rebecca, 3 years ago, addressing our community, you said, I look around this room, and over the 8.5 years I have been with you, I have learned so much about so many of your lives. Your illnesses and losses, some of them devastating and some easier to bear. The births of your children and the marking of their childhoods. I know who bounded up the steps of this bima and who needed more cajoling. I know who amongst you have wept here in the synagogue building, and which of you have shared joy. That is what I celebrate tonight. Well, that is what we're celebrating today. That each of those moments share something. They share you. You have been the smile, the support, the guidance, the kindness, the wisdom, and we feel very lucky. So I'm very happy to invite 10 people to share their Rebecca moment, one for each year of your tenure with us so far. Handing over first to Laura.
Neil James left us 10 years ago to go and study in Israel, just as I was about to become chair. So Rebecca's recruitment was my first leadership task. Rebecca was unlike any of our previous rabbis, and we did have threats that some people would leave if we appointed a woman. As far as I know, no one did leave because of it, and she went out of her way to win over the doubters. The interview took place in David Pelham's living room. The Borishes went to hear Rebecca preach at Westminster Synagogue where she was working, and the appointment panel offered her the post. For me, chairing a synagogue, having a full-time job, and being a rabbi's wife meant time for negotiation was limited. And on one occasion, and Rebecca, I hope you remember it, we actually met in the pub in Crouch End. Over a nice wine and the hubbub of the crowd, we agreed the terms. I did worry, and I think I said it to you, that we might be too suburban a congregation for you, but 10 years suggests otherwise. Rebecca arrived with huge energy, charisma, and dynamism, and began the task of evolving the community in her rabbinic image. I moved to Shabbat. We worked on improving the building, including the kitchen and ark refurbishment. She built strong relationships and many projects were initiated. Rebecca's drive, energy, pastoral care and commitment have not diminished, and the fruits of her labours make FPS what it is today. Thank you, Rebecca.
And Andrea?
Hi. I'm so pleased to have been asked to say a few words this morning, and it made me think, where were we in 2011? By 2011, our son and daughters had enjoyed wonderful bar and bat mitzvahs at FPS, and I remember hoping the new rabbi would be someone who could keep our family engaged. Rabbis Mark and Neil had both been wonderfully influential, and I remember wondering what this new rabbi might bring. So, what are my memories of the last 10 years? First, a family with a tumble of beautiful children we couldn't wait to know. Later, listening, enriching our understanding, thinking Jewishly, a Rebecca word I throw around all the time now. Then, real family friendships, shared meals, laughter, and enjoying shul like never before. Then, when it mattered most, love, support, holding and caring, prayer, and helping us through. And now, meditations, celebrations, lifelong love. And as Rebecca has taught me via Marge Piercy, the art is in compressing attention to each little and big blossom of the tree of life. We love you, Rebecca, and we celebrate everything you have brought to FPS and everything your family has brought to ours.
So 2012 was the year in which Rabbi Rebecca and I were preparing for the Kabbalat Torah service for a very special group of young people. At one point during that process, I was called into Rebecca's office and asked whether I had ever considered studying for the rabbinate myself. And since I took the plunge a few years ago and applying for Liabeck College, Rebecca has been a stalwart throughout. The person I went to in what was probably the lowest points in my journey, and the rabbi who would finally ordain me this past July in our COVID secure ceremony with gloves and masks. As always, she chose the right words and continues to be an inspiration to me and many of my colleagues. Whenever we think of, examples of good practice, Rebecca's name often comes up. In Pirkei Avot, the sayings of the sages, Rabbi Gamliel says that Torah study on its own is not enough, but must be combined with concern for the world. Otherwise, Torah study will result in sin. And Rabbi Rebecca's actualization of this principle, firstly by bringing our shul into contact with the outside world through the night shelter and through the refugee project, but also in setting an example of being able to balance work with having a rich personal life as well, was a key inspiring factor that persuaded me that the rabbinate could be something for me. So long may she continue to inspire us both in our Jewish lives and beyond.
I'm kind of not saying thank you because I'm slightly lost for words, but so far, thank you. Thank you.
Ella.
Rabbi Rebecca, so we joined in 2013, and Rabbi Rebecca has been a huge part of my life before I can even remember. I want to thank her for making my Bat Mitzvah so special, as well as being the fundamental reason we even moved to FPS in the first place. My family have loved it at FPS. I can't believe my dad is even part of the council there now. Through FPS, I have formed lifelong friendships, and I owe Rebecca a huge thank you for that, as she was so unbelievably warm and welcoming to my family. Mazel tov.
Thank you, Ella.
Good morning.
Tika?
Yeah. Having had our son Pharrell circumcised, it was very important to my non-Jewish partner to have our daughter blessed. Girls don't get blessed. Mixed relationships are frowned upon. Non-religious French Jew in London. Where would I begin? Well, I didn't. Fortuity saved me. Pressure was building. Naya was nearly not a baby. Our son had a nursery friend whose father was Jewish and seemed like someone I could approach. I would take my chances. Do you go to synagogue? A rabbi? A woman? Progressive Judaism? Where had I been all these years? I first met Rabbi Rebecca at a Passover Shabbat tots. I'm sure I got more out of it than my children, who were mostly interested in eating apple and honey. We later met to discuss Naya's naming. Naya was nearly 4. She had been warm and welcoming, but how would she be hearing my request? Dragon or fairy godmother? I am sure she can be both, but I left her office that day feeling elated. I didn't have to make excuses for my choices of life or my Judaism, and yet was accepted with open arms. This without compromising values. Rabbi Rebecca led a beautiful and inclusive toddler blessing, memories of which our families will forever cherish. In the words of Salvador Dali, a true artist is not one who is inspired, but one who inspires others. Rabbi Rebecca is truly the best rabbi ever.
Thank you, Jessica, and all your family. Thank you.
Hello, Rebecca. We all know that FPS is so blessed that Rebecca and her family chose to join us 10 years ago. As well as a hugely talented rabbi, we have all gained a good friend. And for me, especially as our families have become intertwined through our children's friendships, as well as our own. My year is 2015, but I have to duck back to the end of 2014 first, and my Hannah's Bat Mitzvah. Like many B'nai Mitzvah parents during Rebecca's era, we so appreciated her ability to connect with and welcome our families and friends and inspire our kids. Many will recall Reuben's Bar Mitzvah the following November. I'm in the correct year now, 2015. I do like to follow rules. And what a celebration that was for Reuben, his family, and all of FPS. Hannah and Reuben were already friends from Ivriara at FPS, Archer Academy and LJY, and then Sadie and Dora too. Sadie and Dora started at Archer together in 2015, and all the kids remain close and supportive, living around the corner, which is super, especially in these days. Sadie's Bat Mitzvah was in early 2017, and Dora had hers that summer. No time to tell you about Honey the cat attacking Dora's beautiful shawl dress on the Friday morning. Ask me about that later. Whilst we're on the subject of Bar Mitzvahs, Raf completed the set magnificently this year with his incredible lockdown Bar Mitzvah, Mazel Tov. I can still see Rebecca and Raf leaning into each other, whispering during bits of the service when he wasn't on show. On behalf of all past and future B'nai Mitzvah and also KT families at FPS, thank you, Rebecca, for connecting with our children and making their time at FPS so special and enriching. As we've heard and we all know, Rebecca is also an amazing pastoral rabbi and particularly supportive at times of loss. She has a very special way of empathizing and getting the tone just right with her stories, her humor, and her ability to create connections. I've been privileged to receive her support in recent months. What is more, she does not only do this in person, but has made Zoom and the screen her own in these last months with her wonderful, charismatic ways and technical talents too. You showed us today, very calm in a crisis. Thank you, Rebecca, for all you do.
Thank you, Louise, and all your family.
My year is 2016. I'm starting in 2015, when we were all horrified to see night after night on our television screens, people drowning while trying to reach safe shores. We all felt helpless at this horrendous situation. Rabbi Rebecca was moved to take action and committed our synagogue to the Citizens UK project to try and persuade councils in Britain to accept 50 refugees in each borough. In our case, this meant trying to convince the head of Barnet Council. This was not an easy feat, as he had already publicly announced that Barnet was unable to accept refugees. However, Rebecca didn't give up. She sent out a call for volunteers to persuade the head of the council that Barnet citizens were able to use their connections, skills, and compassion to aid the council if the council would only agree. In a very special and unforgettable Sukkot service, at which the Mayor of Barnet and other dignitaries were present, the head of the council changed his mind and agreed. A committee was formed that became known as the Barnet Refugee Welcome Board. It consisted of representatives from Finchley Reformed Synagogue, the Quaker community in Finchley, and the Catholic Vincentians, as well as representatives from FPS. We worked together and bonds of friendship were formed. That summer, the families started to arrive, and in 2016, we opened our coffee club in the synagogue hall. There were about 12 families at the very first session, sitting in the cafe, looking shy and a little nervous. They didn't know each other or us, but Rabbi Rebecca welcomed them. That began a wonderful relationship that formed between the 15 families that have settled in the borough, thanks to Rebecca's determination and leadership. Coffee Club took place every other Friday morning, and the families became friends and started to socialize outside of the club, becoming a little community of their own. The Syrian families felt so at home in the synagogue and speak with warmth, respect, and affection for Rabbi Rebecca. The parents know that it was Rebecca's action that has meant that they and their children can live safely and peacefully in London. We are so proud of Rabbi Rebecca for taking action at such a critical time and changing the lives of 15 young Syrian families. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Ofra.
Chris?
Hello, I just wanted to wish Rabbi Rebecca many congratulations on 10 years at FPS. It's been an amazing experience. I've been part of FPS for the last 5 years, and I've really got to know Rebecca, not just as a rabbi, I would say, also really as a very good friend. And there's many things I could pick up on over the last 5 years, but my year is 2017 in this cycle. So in 2017, I had an adult bar mitzvah at FPS, and Rebecca was really a great support in helping plan and organise that. And I think one of my main memories from the day, I'd read my Torah portion, and I was just getting ready to sort of sit back down at the end, having planned everything out. And Rebecca said to me, she said, why don't you just take the rest of the service? You're obviously enjoying it, which I thought was a lovely touch and a real sort of real confidence boost. And I think although we have several hundred members here at FPS, I think it's that kind of individual touch and sort of individual understanding and the individual relationships that Rebecca builds that makes us really so fortunate to have here. So to have her here. So I just want to say a big thank you to Rebecca, and many congratulations again on making the 10 years.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you so much. I'm loving this aid memoir. I'm sure I wouldn't remember what happened in each and every year. Lovely. Thank you.
And so now on to 2018. It was Rosh Hashanah, and for me it was a really emotional service, as I was acknowledging for the first time that this year my parents were not going to be inscribed in the Book of Life. It was Angela Wharton who noticed how upset I was and suggested that I talk to you, Rebecca, which I did. Now, at the age of 67, I still had two parents, and I'd never really had to think about the end stage of life. So we met, and you walked me through the end of life process, what to expect, about what the end is often like, about what to do, about who to call, about the admin, and about the stages in the process. Our conversation and your wisdom was just exactly what I needed. And armed with all the practicalities, I could not have been better prepared. So when the time did come, twice within 8 months, I was just free to feel whatever I needed to feel without any of the questioning or organization or worrying or what do I do, the stuff which would otherwise have distracted me and detracted from the experience. I felt you holding my hand throughout. You visited my parents with me, I'm sure you'll remember. You were only ever a WhatsApp away, and you stood beside me through 2 funerals, 2 shivers, and 1 stone setting. Thank you, Rebecca. You helped me to give my parents a good passing, and you helped me to mourn well. I'll always be grateful to you, and I will never forget.
Thank you, Margot.
2019 was the year that I joined the Synagogue Council, and my main reason for doing so was because of you, Rabbi Rebecca. Having been involved with the synagogue for 20 years, I've enjoyed services with rabbis before you, Rabbi Mark Goldsmith, Rabbi Neil James. Each brought their own wonderful qualities. But for me, I feel that my personal journey and real connection with FPS began with you. As Laura mentioned, you were interviewed at my dining room table, and so a new chapter began. My memories of you over this 10-year period are all about how you connect with people and make your sermons and interactions meaningful and real. You've connected with me and my family through several life events, some happy, some sad. A 10-year wedding anniversary, an adult bar mitzvah, a funeral, Ollie's bar mitzvah, and a Kabbalat Torah. Each and every one carried out with the same warmth, thought, and personal connection. Your services, sermons, and High Holy Day activities bring a spirituality, and you do them with energy, enthusiasm, and freshness every time. You manage to connect with the congregation and bring a gentleness, a kindness, an intelligence, a passion, and humour to everything you do. I joined council inspired by you and all that you bring to FPS. Throughout the 10 years, you too have had your own life events, and whether difficult or joyous, you have always brought the same commitment, honesty, and humanity to your work, and never wavered from your dedication to the FPS community. Here's to the next 10 years.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now on to the very strange 2020. Despite the challenges of lockdown, it's provided a few unforeseen opportunities, not least that of the anonymous window shopping online when I was searching for a new synagogue to join. Facebook Live services allowed me to watch and evaluate as I attended several different places. Each had its merits, but something drew me back repeatedly to FPS. I'd been to a couple of services here before lockdown. I don't think there was any connection and believe it's only coincidence that several schools I attended in my youth also closed once I'd joined, and was engaged by the streamed services, but it was the meditation group that sealed the deal for me. My normal modus operandi of quietly just being in the background until I'm confident enough to participate just didn't happen here. Rabbi Rebecca's warmth, enthusiasm, and thoughtfulness quickly drew me into the group. Even before I'd contributed anything, it seemed to matter that I was a part of it. During the scary early days of total lockdown, when I had to shield, it gave me a focus, and the group became an incredibly important part of my routine, engendering a stillness through the short service and the focus on just breathing. For someone who is always busy, it is an invaluable lesson. Rabbi Rebecca's calming voice, enhanced by Dean's playing, reassured me in a world where very little was certain. Though I'd been singing in the choir at a synagogue for many years, that was as far as it had gone. Here, I was soon asked to participate by reading a poem and saying one of the community blessings in a service, and these little acts of inclusivity meant a huge amount. Unlikely though it seemed in this technological climate, I quickly felt a part of the community and knew that I'd like to complete my conversion here. I had been engaged with 2 previous Access to Judaism courses, but delving into Judaism is the most practically based, well-researched and vibrant. Each person is welcome and respected for who they are, and Rabbi Rebecca takes time to get to know everyone. And because she values them, she remembers what they told her. She presents us with a range of resources and sometimes asks us to complete homework tasks, which are, to say the least, thought-provoking at times. However, they concern the complexities of living in a 21st century world and so underpin the Jewish beliefs and practices on which our lives are based. Then there are the services, most memorably, the intensely moving High Holy Day events with their challenging, thoughtful teaching. Here, so many people are encouraged to take part in the service and to be an active member of the community. It's especially wonderful that young people are such a key part of FPS. Since April, there have been so many B'nai Mitzvot. At first, I thought I'd chanced upon a particularly accomplished young person's ceremony, and I had. But I quickly came to see that young people both respond and contribute to the vibrant atmosphere here. Much is expected of them, and in return, they give of their best. They clearly know and understand that they are an integral part of both the history and the future of FPS, and often demonstrate this by reading from the Czech scroll. Having been a head teacher for 20 years, I know youngsters' anxieties often run very deep at such important times, and watching Rabbi Rebecca ensuring smooth transition of script pages whilst positively exuding warmth and encouragement are absolute balm to the soul. Such empathy is a rare gift, and it shows what a very special person our rabbi is.
Rebecca, we've tried to give just a flavour of what your rabbinate has meant to FPS in the last 10 years and how you've touched our lives, but we can't hope to do justice in it in just a dozen moments. There are so many more voices and so many more stories to tell, and so many aspects of your work that we've not been able to touch on. So we have a gift for you, which in these very strange times, I can't present to you in person, but I believe you have it with you. Is that right? You've got it there?
This is like being on television. I do. I told Zoe that when it arrived in the post, I ripped it open, only to then read the note that said, don't open it before Shabbat. So it's half open and half...
Perfect. That's exactly where we need to be. So it's my huge privilege as chair to present it to you, as it were, on behalf of the community virtually this morning. And it includes lots more stories and memories reflecting on what you've brought us. And I just want to say for my part, I know that every single member of my family has been transformed and shaped in ways that we could never have anticipated by being members of the FPS community. Thank you for your inspiration and for your leadership. So open your present, take a look at it. Apologies for stealing the first sermon spot of the year. I know you've not been able to get a word in edgewise, Rebecca, so have a look. And then if there's anything you'd like to say, this is your moment.
Rabbi Rebecca, the first 10 years at FPS. So I will just have a quick peek, but right, this definitely has Zoe and Josie's hand, which kind of explains to me what you were doing a couple of weeks ago with all these envelopes with notes from people. This is extraordinary. Wow. Oh, and pictures from Purim Spiels gone by. I see me and Philippa Carr. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I've just seen a message from Dora saying, please don't cry, Mummy, on the screen. So I'm trying very, very hard. There's a picture of several of us rabbis visiting, and Harry Jacobi, Zichrono Livracha, a picture of all of us on Sukkot with you, Danny, also, and Frank, don't know if you can see, and Daniel Lichman as well, and Mark Solomon. Wow, this is extraordinary. Thank you so much. So as I was thinking, it was Ruben and I had a conversation where I remembered that 10 years ago, it was the 1st of January. It was Frank's birthday, I remember. That was my first service with you. And I spoke about the tiny window, the transfer window in the football world, and how I was just sneaking in before the transfer window closed. And here, 10 years later, Ruben and I reflected on how many footballers stay after their initial transfer for 10 years. We thought of Steven Gerrard, who spent his whole career at Liverpool, so clearly we're not there yet. We thought of Frank Lampard in Chelsea, who stayed, I think he's been there 12 years, so I'm not quite there. We thought of Harry Kane in Spurs, who's almost there. And Ruben wouldn't let me research who in Arsenal might have stayed that long, so forgive me for that. But I recall these past 10 years with so much love for this congregation. As Anne captures, so much happened in my life as well as in all your lives. And I feel that it's just been an extraordinary partnership that we have built together. It was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai who said that it doesn't really matter if you're teaching Torah, if you've learned Torah, if you don't credit the people that you have learned with. And I think so much of what I've been able to achieve, and when I hear you all speak about these past 10 years, I really had to stop myself interrupting, because for every achievement, every success, every warm connection that has been made here in this congregation, it's because of such willing partnership. And I'm so aware of that every day. As Bobby said, it was so lovely, Bobby, you coming up in 2020 and talking about choosing our congregation. And out of our morning meditation service that Dean and I lead with great joy, I think, since March, has come a plethora of poems. And I'm thinking today of E.E. Cummings' poem, I Thank You, God, for Most This Amazing Day. And for me, I didn't know how I would feel this morning, standing here on the bima with technology around us, failing and succeeding in equal measures, with the partnerships that we have here in the synagogue now, our wonderful musicians, our wonderful tech team and wizards that got us back up. I didn't know how I would feel. It feels like another glorious day, but a wonderful moment to mark. Laura and I spoke, I really remember this, Laura, in our first year, on the first year that I'd been, so the 1st of January 2012, and we talked about, I wonder what will happen, when could we do a good anniversary? And I'm sure neither of us would have known that here we would be 10 years on. So I thank you enormously. I thank you for the joy and love you've brought to my family, but also for the willing partnership that has enabled us to really grow from strength to strength in our congregation, to be more than a building, and yet to have designs and hopes and dreams to make our building more as well. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I shall enjoy this afternoon. I have no idea what it would hold once I receive this package, and I'm very grateful. I think I'm going to suggest, if I'm I presume, allowed to go back into leading service mode, that we are going to go to Aleinu, to Ein Od, to sing Aleinu together as joyfully as you can, with your microphones off, obviously. And I thank you all 11 of you that spoke so beautifully to me. I was trying both to try not to cry, but also to imprint what you were saying on my brain. And each of you are very special to me. Thank you. Aleinu, page 520.
Aleinu לשמח לנו הכל, הלב ודולת, יוצר בראשית, אשר שם ידינו ליגד את שמו, וקור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד. להשיב אותה אל דבריך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד, 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 אין עוד.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. We turn now to Kaddish together on page 524. I turn now to those who are marking a yahrzeit this Shabbat within the congregation and also mourning a death. I share with you the sad news that Mary Hutra died on New Year's Day. We are waiting for the details of her funeral and Shiva, working closely with the family who all are unwell with COVID. And we will honor her as she is reunited with her Felix. We think also of Martin Boyd. Martin Boyd remembered by Valerie Boyd-Helner, of Helga Brady, aunt of Neil Rosen Webb, of Thomas Touts, brother-in-law of Patricia, brother of Patricia and brother-in-law of Alan Hinson, and of Arnold Urbach, father of Leslie Urbach. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. May those who recall and remember their loved ones be comforted in their loss. And I wanted to check with my parents the day for my grandmother, Alma Berg's yahrzeit, which is indeed this Shabbat as well. Leah Bat Baruch Alma Berg, Zichrona Livracha. May her memory be for a blessing as well, as we say the words of the Kaddish together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shamei rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, magala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mavorach le'olam amei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithada v'tale v'talal shemed kudusha brichu, leila min kol berchata v'sherata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei Adam, v'imru amen. And now, I suppose we have a few announcements. Do we have announcements
We
tomorrow?
do have announcements. We do, yes. And we have fewer announcements than usual, but more thank yous. So it will come out in the watch, as it were. So thank you, first of all, to everyone who participated in today's service. Of course, to you, Rebecca, to our musicians, Dean and Franklin, for beautifying our service today with your wonderful music, and to everyone who participated. Dora and Raphael, thank you for leading us in prayer. Thank you, Laura, Andrea, Elliot, Ella, Jessica, Louise, Ofra, Chris, Margaret, Anne and Bobby for representing us all, as it were, and speaking on our behalf. And I know that there are so many others who are wishing that they were part of that group. Thank you for being there for us and on behalf of us all, as it were. Special thanks to Zoe and to Josie, who masterminded this morning's proceedings and the assembly of that wonderful gift. So thank you to you both for that. Of course, thank you to the tech team. Today of all days, we're reminded of your grace and good humour under pressure and the calm competence with which you keep this show on the road. So very grateful to you. What a wonderful coincidence that we've got a number of things falling on the same day today. Happy birthday, Frank, from all of us. It feels very appropriate that we have an opportunity to celebrate our emeritus rabbi as well today. So happy birthday, good wishes from us all. Happy birthday to you too, Benji, on turning 18. Congratulations. It's always a joy to see young people growing up in our community, so thank you. Thank you to our president, Paul, for reading the Haftarah today. I don't think I've left anyone out, so thank you everyone who made this morning's service possible. So this week is quite a quiet week for us. Morning meditation resumes at 8:30 on Tuesday. It runs Tuesday to Friday, and I hope Bobby has convinced those of you who haven't tried it to give it a go this week. All of our adult learning is suspended for this week and will resume next weekend, but we're kicking off in style on Sunday. Next Sunday, Cafe Ivria at 10 will be Torah study with Rabbi Rebecca. She's looking at Parashat Va'era. The purpose of the plagues will be the subject of discussion. So that promises to be thought-provoking and engaging. And then next Sunday evening at 7:30, we've got a really special Beit Midrash event. It's called Jews in the Caribbean, Two Historic Perspectives. And we've got two very different, wonderful speakers. So we're being joined by Rabbi Thomas Salomon of Westminster Synagogue. He's going to be talking about the Barbados Jewish community today, which he knows very well and has visited often. And he'll be telling us a little bit about the history and background of the contemporary Jewish community in the Barbados. And we're also being joined by Professor Diana Payton from Edinburgh University. She's going to be speaking to us about the history of Jewish involvement in the slave trade. How can we understand and acknowledge that aspect of our history? And how can we also respond to the anti-Semitic uses to which it's too often put? So I hope you'll join us for that very special event next Sunday. Ivria gets an extra week before they start up again on the 16th. So 2 weeks to go before we're back to Ivria. So that's it for this morning. It only remains for me to say to you all Shabbat Shalom and Happy New Year.
Shabbat Shalom, Happy New Year. Thank you, Tamara. And we're going to finish with Adon Olam.
I don't know which one. Oh, nice. Okay. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra V'et Nasa V'chetzo Kol Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kiklot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Hoveh V'hu Yiyeh B'tifara V'hu Echad V'ein Sheni L'hamshilo L'hakbira B'li Reshit B'li Tavlit V'lo Ha'oz V'ha'misra V'hu Eli V'chai Go'ali V'tzochev li B'eit Tzara V'hu Nisi Umanos li Menat Kosi B'yom Ekra V'yado Avkid Ruchi B'eit Ishan V'A'ira V'im Ruchi G'viati Adonai li V'lo Ira.
So a final blessing for us all. One of my favorite, thinking of the watches outside the temple, the outgoing watch saying to the incoming watch, and that's what we all do by keeping watch over this, our congregation. Mishe shiken et shamo b'bayit hazeh, hu yashkin benechem, ahava v'achava, v'shalom v'reut. May the one whose presence dwells in this house cause love and harmony, peace and friendship to dwell amongst us all. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
So we're going to go into Kiddush. I'm going to give you a moment to grab whatever you make Kiddush over, whether it's time for your whiskey or your wine, ready for your lunch. And just as you do that, I want to share with you, Beverly, Kafka just shared with me that Andrea Narchin has just returned from hospital from being unwell with COVID. And Nori is still there. So just, I'm sure it would be nice for us all to reach out to her and be aware of that. So thank you, Beverly, for letting me know that too.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן.
Amen.
לחיים.
L'chaim. And Hamotzi, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.